I can tell you the exact moment I realized it. Not the slow realization that had been building for months. The exact moment. The kind that hits you like a door swinging open into an empty room. It was a Saturday afternoon in February. I had just gotten some news. Not terrible news. Not the kind that breaks you, but the kind you need to say out loud to another person. The kind that needs to land somewhere before it starts to feel too heavy to carry alone. I stood in my kitchen and I thought, who do I call? I went through the list in my head, one name at a time. And I stood there for a long time because the list was shorter than I thought, and the people on it were not quite right. And I realized I did not have a single person I could call at that moment and say just that. I need to talk, not about anything specific, not for advice, just to be heard by someone who actually knew me. That is what I want to talk about today. Not loneliness in the dramatic sense, not isolation. Something quieter and more specific than that. The moment a man looks up and realizes that somewhere along the way, without ever deciding to, he stopped building the kind of friendships that survive the end of a work day. If you have ever stood in a room with something too heavy to carry alone and realized you did not know who to call, stay with me. This one is for you. If this channel is new to you, subscribe now. This is what we talk about here, the things men carry alone. Every week, a new story. I grew up believing friendship was something that happened naturally. You showed up somewhere long enough and proximity became connection. That was how it worked when I was young. The neighborhood kids, the crew I came up with in my 20s. Nobody had to try. You were just there, together often enough, and something formed on its own. For 35 years, I had a company. I had men I saw every single day. Men I trusted with real decisions. Men whose judgment I respected and who respected mine. I knew which of them was going through a divorce. I knew which one was holding everything together with his last 10%. We didn't always talk about those things directly, but we knew. And for a long time, I told myself that was enough, that knowing was the same as being close. Then I retired, and within 18 months, almost all of it was gone. Not because anyone did anything wrong, not because there was a falling out, just because we were never really friends. We were colleagues, we were crew. The thing that held us together was the job site, the shared problem, the daily proximity. When those things ended, the connection had nothing underneath it to hold it up. I don't say that with bitterness. It took me a long time to understand it without bitterness. But it's the truth. And I think most men over 50, if they're honest with themselves, know exactly what I mean. Here is the part I was slowest to admit. Susan had been my social life for 30 years without me ever understanding that was what she was. She was the one who kept us connected to people. She made the calls. She remembered the birthdays. She was the one who said we should have the neighbors over. She kept friendships alive through the small, consistent effort of showing up. When she got sick, I didn't fully see it. After she was gone, I felt it in ways I still don't have complete language for. The golf groups, the church she used to take me to, the neighbor I had coffee with twice. All of it felt like going through motions, like two people performing connection without either of them knowing what they were performing for. The conversation stayed on the surface: sports, weather, what the kids were up to. Nothing that cost either of us anything. And I would drive home afterward feeling more alone than when I left. If this is landing somewhere real for you, hit the like button. It helps more men find this. Keep watching. One evening in March, I was at a hardware store, looking for nothing in particular, the way you do when the house is too quiet and you need somewhere to be. An older man in the next aisle was struggling to read the label on something. I read it for him. We started talking, not about anything important, just talking, the way you do when neither of you is in a hurry to get back to an empty house. We stood in that aisle for 40 minutes. His name was Gerald, retired postal worker, widower, 3 kids spread across 2 time zones. At some point, he said something I wasn't expecting. He said, I come here most Saturdays, not because I need anything, just to be somewhere people are. I recognized something in that sentence immediately. The same thing I had been doing. Driving to the hardware store, the coffee shop, the church. Not because I needed anything, because I needed somewhere to put myself. I said, me too. 2 words. That was all. But something shifted. We stood there a little longer. He told me about his wife. I told him about Susan. Not the big things, just small truth things, the kind you usually keep to yourself. And somewhere in that conversation in the hardware store aisle, on a Saturday afternoon, something real happened. Not a friendship yet, but the beginning of the possibility of one. Real connection at this stage of life does not come from finding the right group or the right activity. It starts with saying something true first, with being willing to go first, with dropping the performance for 30 seconds and letting someone see something real. Most men are waiting for someone else to do it. Most men will wait until there is nobody left to wait with. If you go first, sometimes the other person has nothing to offer. That is fine. Move on. But sometimes, more often than you would expect, the other person has been carrying the same thing in the same silence, and they have been waiting for exactly that moment, for someone to open the door first. Gerald and I have coffee on the first Saturday of every month. We don't talk about sports much. We talk about the things men don't usually say. What it feels like to wake up to a quiet house. What it means to get older in a country that doesn't have much patience for it. What we wish we had said to people who are no longer here to hear it. It is not the friendship I had when I was 30. It is something different. Something that could only exist between 2 men who have already been through most of the hard things and don't have much reason left to pretend otherwise. I don't have a name for what that is exactly, but I know what it feels like. It feels like being known. On a Saturday afternoon in February, when I have something I need to say out loud, I know who to call now. That is not a small thing. For a man who stood alone in a kitchen with a list that went nowhere, that is the whole distance. Take a moment and write 1 word in the comments. Just write, I know. That's all I need to read. There are men watching this right now who haven't said that to anyone, not once. And if that is you, I want you to know that I read every single one. And if this is the kind of story you want more of, subscribe to this channel. Every week, something honest. For men who still have something to say.